Yeah, I just want to put a couple of tire remove and install tips out here, although I ain't having no problem here. But you always really want to remove the wheels when the car's on the ground, or at least loosen them up, right? You don't need to remove them, but I already loosened these up. Now, of course, if you got a cheater bar and one of these, cross-type lug wrenches, yeah, you're good to go. But if you don't have one, what you could do is you could put your foot on one side here and pull up with your hand on the other side. The reason you want to pull up on one side and put your foot on the other side is you don't want to bend this too far like that and possibly snap the bolt off. It's a possibility. You don't want to just stick your foot on there. You want to put your foot on there if it's real tight and then pull up on the other side. And that's the other reason you don't want to have it jacked up, because it's harder, if it's jacked up, car could be a little bit unstable, but you have to lift your foot a little higher. It might be a little more awkward to get some, put your body weight on it, and if the car's up a little higher. Now, I already broke these loose, and if you want to keep one of these in your car at all times, and this is a made in USA one, right? I found some of the Chinese ones bent. This is a made in USA one. You see this tape I got on here? Like that? That marks the correct size for the lug. That's another thing. It's a simple thing. You can be guessing around and stuff, but I always know that that's the correct size for this lug on this car, because that's what I got with it. Now, if you are removing these tires someplace else and they're really, really stuck and rusted on, now this is probably not a great thing to do. I would suggest trying to get the impact and spraying some, just use the impact to usually get it off. But if they're really, really bad, sometimes you got to use heat. One problem is you don't want to use heat on these because these rims are clear coated and all that kind of crap, and it'll screw that up. But if they're on there really, really bad, heat will usually get them. Now, I'm going to go over a couple other things you probably don't know. You probably know that, but then there's people that don't know stuff that I know that I think is simple. But the other thing is, it's always good to keep some kind of blanket or towel with your piece of cardboard, because it's always nice if you're on really dirty ground to have that there. You can just lay it down, even if that's in your trunk, it's rolled up or whatever. It's a hell of a lot better. You can always use something like that to roll up your tools too. So now, another thing I like to do, and I know nobody does this, I know some people do put some grease on the studs to keep them from rusting. That's a good damn idea. And I usually use this some kind of wheel bearing grease, or this marine grade grease that doesn't wash out that easy. Wash out corrosion prevention and stuff. Superior trailer wheel bearing grease, right? Something like that, because it won't come out. But I also grease where the wheel actually mounts to, this wheel mounts to the hub. Now, don't get grease on a disc or nothing like that, but it doesn't have to be a lot. You don't have to goop it. I probably put a little more on your need, but sometimes, not so much with these aluminum wheels, but steel wheels, they'll get stuck to the rim. You could take all the lugs off, and then the wheel will be stuck to the rim. And the way to get that off is you might want to drive the car like 2 miles an hour and hit the brakes, hit a turn real quick with the wheel lugs on there loose, and sometimes that cracks it loose. Sometimes the wheel gets stuck on the rim, so I always put a little grease on there. Now, another thing, you can have a back spacer on sometimes these wheels, these mag wheels, sometimes they're sold with a back spacer. Now, when you're pulling off the wheel, the back spacer might get stuck to that side, and then you're changing them or you're rotating the tires or something like I'm doing here. You want to actually have that back spacer JB welded to the wheel permanently, so when you pull the wheel off, it isn't stuck on the hub. So this way, you got between the wheel and the hub grease, so it comes off easy. But if you have a back spacer that is on, let's say, sometimes wheels are sold with back spacers for different, because they'll work with a bunch of different cars, so they sell a back spacer with it. You want to have that back spacer JB welded to the back of to the mag wheel itself. This way it doesn't come loose, you know what I mean? And it doesn't get stuck on there, because you could be swapping a tire around and you might have a backspacer that's like, you know, rusted on there, or maybe you don't realize it because it's at night, and then you're putting on another wheel and it's got two backspacers on it, and all of a sudden you don't have your lugs, you know, tightened down that tight because you got two backspacers on there. You don't realize it because it's in the middle of the night, you're changing a tire and it's raining out. That's why I always, if there's a backspacer, I always JB weld that backspacer to the wheel. But then when I put the wheel on, I make sure the wheel's got some grease just where it mounts, and also put some grease on here, which is the spindle nut for the axle. So, because, you know, this crap just keeps rusting out, and you know how it is from the factory. They don't freaking paint nothing. Guess it's designed to have a useful life of so many years. My useful life on this thing should be 100 years. So, dude, they don't do this when you're, you know, if you take your place to a car to a shop, they ain't gonna put grease over here and all this kind of crap. They don't do that. So just figured I'd tell you that, because you'll find out, if you got the wheel on there several years, you might find, hey, the wheel lugs are rusted on there. Then on top of it, the wheel itself is, you know, rusted onto the hub. And you're gonna have a real problem. That's because, man, these guys that change tires, man, in these shops, they don't put this crap on here. And I know it's better to put anti-seize than, you can put anti-seize on there too, but you don't need a real lot of grease. You don't need to put like a 1/4 inch grease, just a coat. That's all you need. I usually use that marine grade wheel bearing grease because it don't wash out easy. Because once it's squished on there, no water's getting in there anyway. And it keeps down, you know, corrosion and crap, so there you go.